Course 4 is a deceivingly big course, and if you're going through my Humber College real estate playlist, you'll see I have a couple videos on Course 4 already. But a lot of people do find this course to be the hardest, so it's worth going over. First, we'll touch on what you might see most and what to focus on, and then we'll get into a harder topic involving commercial tenancy. Just quickly though, if you find these videos helpful, consider liking and subscribing. It means an absolute ton to me, but let's just dive right into the video. First, the impact of Reba and the Commercial Tenancies Act when trading in commercial real estate. It sounds like a big, long, intimidating sentence, but it is consistent with the rest of the material, isn't it? It's what comes up most and what we should focus on. Let's break down this big, long sentence so you can understand what I mean. For this example of the impact of Reba, let's talk about disclosure of material facts and conscientious and competent service when dealing with commercial properties. I'll also put it into a question we might see on the exam with 4 possible answers to choose from. By this point on Course 4, you probably have a really good idea of what material facts are, but it's good to go over these because good repetition is good learning. So quickly, a material fact is a fact which would affect a reasonable person's decision to buy or sell property. If you need to brush up on material facts as well as latent and patent defects, definitely watch this video in the cards here after this video. But litigation can occur in commercial real estate as well as residential real estate when a buyer discovers material defects after closing that were not previously disclosed. And us as salespeople must ensure that the facts that we have gathered are accurate and complete to comply with Reba and our code of ethics. Basically, us doing our due diligence and providing conscientious and competent service. So let's put this into a question that you might see often on this Course 4 exam. When working with your buyer clients purchasing a commercial retail property, what is not a good practice when doing due diligence and providing conscientious and competent service? And of course, I made this one a not question because we might as well. They do come up as much as 40% of the time on the Course 4 exam. And if you've seen previous videos of mine and what I explain in my Exam Master mini courses, which we'll discuss later in the video, I really break down how not questions aren't that bad anymore. They may be even a bit easier with the right strategies. But let's have a look at potential answers here and navigate to the correct answer. A, explaining to the buyers the absolute necessity of carefully inspecting prospective properties. B, providing appropriate conditions in a schedule attached to an agreement of purchase and sale regarding due diligence or specific matters that must be investigated. C, mention to the buyers that if we see anything that could be a material defect, a good practice is to always choose another property because there could be more. And when going through potential answers, trying to navigate to the right one, I always suggest leave the cursor hovered over any potential answer that it could be. So I'll leave it hovered over here for now, but it's always good to read the last answer for good process of elimination practice. D, make a list of third-party professionals that could help in discovering any material facts the seller may not have disclosed. Perfect. So with not questions, there are now 3 correct answers, and we're looking for that one incorrect answer. I always read it again with the last part of the question. What is not a good practice when doing due diligence and providing conscientious and competent service? Mentioning to our buyers that if we see anything that could be a material defect, to always choose another property is not a good practice. I would answer it and move on. In commercial real estate, and of course in residential real estate as well, there could be lots of material facts that need to be discussed. You're not always moving on. Look for keywords like that always to stand out because we're not always going to be choosing another property. This 100% could be a property for our clients. We just have to do our due diligence. So that would be a good example of what to focus on most when it comes to Course 4. That has Reba, code of ethics, material facts, conscientious and competent service. But let's move on now to one of the harder topics of Course 4, rights and obligations under the Commercial Tenancies Act. I've talked about this in the past a bit, but again, good repetition is great practice for learning. Really good knowledge to know, understand, maybe even memorize for Course 4 exam is knowing tenants and landlords' obligations under the Commercial Tenancies Act. A tenant must notify the landlord in writing of specific breaches of the lease and allow a reasonable period of time for them to comply. A tenant cannot hold back rent, for example, because a landlord has failed to fulfill their obligations as outlined in the lease. A landlord must notify tenants in writing of specific breaches of the lease and allow a reasonable period of time for them to comply. A landlord may have the right to terminate a tenancy when the tenant fails to fulfill obligations as outlined in the lease. Basically, both parties must follow the obligations of the lease, but what happens if one party doesn't? For example, if the tenant doesn't pay rent for over 3 months, or the landlord refuses to fix a leaky roof and that results in the tenant's personal belongings being damaged, something like that. Well, in that case, both the landlord and the tenants have two options to resolve this dispute. Option one is small claims court. A tenant/landlord can take the matter to small claims court to ask for compensation for losses incurred as a result of the landlord or tenant's actions, such as reduced sales or damage to the premises. Or option two, a tenant/landlord can go to the Superior Court of Justice to obtain a court order that requires the landlord or tenant to abide by the conditions and terms of the lease. In court, the tenant/landlord can also seek compensation for any costs incurred. Note that small claims courts here in Ontario will hear claims for money or personal property at a value of $35,000 or less, and if the tenant or landlord is looking to sue for an amount higher than $35,000, they will need to file their claim with the Superior Court of Justice and follow the civil litigation process. So if we quick break that down, the landlord and the tenant have obligations documented in their lease. If one does not fulfill their obligations, they have two options. One, small claims court for $35,000 or under, or two, Superior Court of Justice for $35,000 or over. So a bit of a harder topic there, especially if you're not too interested in it. Sometimes if you're not too interested in something, it's harder to memorize. Just use good common sense. Commercial Tenancies Act is going to come up on the Course 4 exam. Landlord and tenant's rights is going to come up, and of course Reba, Code of Ethics, conscientious and competent service, material facts, latent defects, stuff like that you're going to see often. I really hope that helped, guys, and if you're looking for additional support to pass these exams first try, I have completed all of my Exam Master mini courses now, all the way from Course 1 to Sims 2. It's my Exam Master mini notes, mini quizzes, my exact fundamentals I used to pass all exams first try and in under 4.5 months, as well as I break down 35 plus questions on video based on each course. It's kind of an all-in-one package, and it's more knowledge that I can ever teach in a 1-hour tutoring session, and for a fraction of the price, plus you have it to refer back to. That link in the description below as well is also a value link for the YouTube family. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll put a link to the Exam Master mini course, Course 4 right here, as well as an additional video on Course 4 for more support. But if you have any questions at all, DM, email, comment on this video. I get back to everyone. My name is Callum, eXp Realty real estate agent here in Ontario, and we'll see you in the next one.